Well, it's the first part of summer. We're into June now and fishing should get good everywhere. And one of the things though that people get a little nervous about is catching crappies, because those crappies are done with some of that shallow stuff. And once that wraps up, it seems like a lot of people just leave them alone until they head out to that mid-lake structure where it's really easy to find them over the holes. But I'll tell you what, there's some really good crappie fishing to be had at this time of year. They're just a little bit tricky to find, but we're going to show you exactly how to do it today on Fish Ed. Doesn't exactly feel like midsummer out here today, but that's part of what has slowed a lot of things down this year and made these fish a lot more catchable. We're gonna have a heck of a year here if we don't get the warm temps really quick, because what's gonna happen is these fish are just gonna stay in a lot of these positions like they're in right now. They're gonna get deep later in the year, but they're gonna be eating nonstop. Look at that, got that one right there. Look at that. That right there is exactly what we're after today. Crappies stacked up on a break line, and these fish, they're not out deep yet. And let me tell you why they're not out there. The bait's not out there. That crappie right there, he's in here because he just got done spawning up in there. The spawn's been done now for probably a week, week and a half. And what's happened is, instead of just heading out to that mid-lake stuff, fish like this one right here have come out to this first break, and here's why they're here. They hit the breaks right here for one reason. They're eating minnows, and there's not a lot of bait out there yet. There's been no bug hatches, so we don't have a lot of minnows chasing the bugs out there, and therefore we don't have these crappies going out there. Now here's the other thing, those crappies go out there and they suspend over the deep water midsummer, and they're really easy to find. Right now they can get a little bit intimidating because they're not that easy, but really if you just work these break lines, anywhere where you drop that first break, 9, 10, 11, 12 feet of water, here's what you're gonna find. You're gonna find the crappies have slid out here. They haven't gone any further. They're running along here eating the same minnows that the walleyes are eating. They're eating the same minnows that, you might find some bass sneaking out here after that spawn wraps up for them. You might also find your pike out here. All these fish are gonna get out here and they're all mixed together, eating minnows along this first break. And I'll tell you what, it's just a great time to be out crappie fishing, because nobody else is crappie fishing. They're all chasing walleyes because the crappies are a little bit harder to find. Until they get out over that deep stuff, this is where you're gonna find them. And it's actually pretty easy pickings. There he is. Boy, once you contact these fish, you can just get after them one after another, and we're on a good bunch of them here now. And once you get on them, man, I'll tell you what, it's actually really easy to catch them using what we're using. I'm gonna throw that guy in the live well, and then I wanna show you this, because this is really, really simple. Now, earlier in the year, we were up in the shallows, and when we're up there, we're fishing small little jigs, and sometimes I'm using a 32 ounce with some plastic on it, maybe a Lindy What's It jig, but I'm using something really, really small and subtle, because while they're up there, they've got a lot of different things on their mind, but they're running around and they're grabbing all kinds of different baits, and sometimes that might be bugs, it might be crustaceans. Out here now, here's what's happening. They're chasing minnows. So once they get out here, I'm not fishing a float anymore. What I'm doing is I'm just running this trolling motor right along this break. As soon as I either see them on my graph or catch one, I just stop the boat and I camp right over the top of them and I vertical jig them. So here's what I'm using today. This is a 16th ounce Lindy Little Nipper, and I'll tell you what, this has just been catching crappies forever. It's got a whole bunch of colors. It's a simple little hair jig that allows me to just put a Fathead minnow on it and drop it down. Now, this is one other thing I want you to keep in mind. These fish are chasing minnows. I'm not gonna go with those small, tiny little crappie minnows. I'm not gonna go with little chunks of nightcrawler or anything like that. So go with your fatheads, and sometimes I'll pick one of the smaller fatheads, but I'm going with a bigger minnow because it matches what's out here. And you know what? The walleyes are out here eating the same size bait. The perch are out here eating the same size bait. So make sure you're going with a size of a minnow that's actually gonna attract them, and it'll make all the difference. All you gotta do is lip hook them right on that little nipper, drop it down, vertical jig it, and you'll get them. every game fish species under the sun is living right where the minnows are right now, and that's right on this break. Look at that. Look at this. It's a big walleye. Look at that. Wow. What a fun day of crappie fishing. Look at that fish. What a big, beautiful walleye. That is just awesome. Little Nipper crappie fishing. These fish are just stacked up. When they're stacked up in a spot like this, man, you can just catch them one after another. How awesome is that? Let's get this big girl back in the water and get back to catching crappies. Man, these fish, when they're in water like this, I mean, they fight right to the surface because they're pretty shallow. Look at that, we got lucky on that fish. Grab him and I'll show him to you. But that right there, man, that's just fun. I don't care what your favorite species is, catching spring crappies is just a ball. They fight hard in this cool water, and you know, when they get out to this first break, they're not out in that deep stuff yet where they're half dead, halfway up. That's just a lot of fun to catch those fish right there. Let me give you one more tip catching these fish. When I'm driving around looking for them, one of the things that I think happens a lot of times is people see little marks on their graph and they're up high. Most of the time at this time of the year, that is actually fish when you go over them. Even if it's a small little black mark, that's usually crappies. Now here's what happens. A lot of times by nature, crappies want to suspend. So they'll leave those spawning areas and they'll come out here and they'll suspend. But here's the thing, the minnows aren't suspended yet. We haven't had algae blooms and stuff, so here's what's happening. Those crappies got to go down to feed. So as I'm driving along this break line, if I see those crappies suspended up a little bit, here's what I do. I fish those areas because I know that wherever they're at, they're going to go down and eat. And then a lot of the other times, I'll just see them right on the graph. And if you see them on the graph down on the bottom, they'll just be a much smaller little deal, and very seldom will a crappie arc. It won't arc like a walleye. So remember, it won't be that long, big, thick stuff, but it'll a lot of times just be a little bit smaller. It'll have some color in it, or it'll just be black up there higher. Those are crappies. Fish those areas and you're going to catch them. Get out, enjoy this, because I'll tell you what, this is some fun fishing. And like I was saying earlier, you can be all by yourself and do this, and you can really fill a live well and have a great fish fry at this time of the year. You don't got to wait for those crappies to get out deep. They're sitting right on this first break right now, just waiting to be had. Hey, check back with us each and every week. We're going to take fish ed all over the Midwest, and we're going to bring you some of the best bites that we can find, and we're just going to have a lot of fun catching a whole bunch of different species. I'm Jon Thelen. We'll catch you next time.